like,
I'll think of it.
just donating money to different people, isn't it?
All right, I'm going to go ahead and call the regular DeKalb City Council meeting of February 12th to order. Roll call, please.
Zasada,
Here.
Larson,
Here,
Smith,
Here.
Perkins,
Here.
McAdams,
Here.
Verbic,
Here.
Walker, Mayor Barnes,
Here.
7 present.
All right, this meeting is in order. I also wanted to let everyone know Alderman Walker did reach out to me and let me know he was not going to be here ahead of time. And with that, we'll move on to agenda item B, Pledge of Allegiance, and we could have Captain Hy-Vee lead us in the pledge, please.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You got it, Mr. Gentry, no problem. Thanks for
See you tomorrow.
All right, moving on to agenda item C, approval of the agenda. I take a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Alderman Smith, seconded by Alderman Verbic. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Zasada,
Yes.
Larson,
yes,
Smith,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
McAdams.
Yes.
Verbic,
Yes.
Mayor Barnes,
Yes.
7 aye.
The agenda has been approved. Moving on to D, presentations, we have none. E, public participation. The public comments that we have will be around agenda item I-1, I believe it is. So moving on to F, appointments. Number 1, appointing Ken George appointing Ken George, he's gonna represent electricians, and Jason Barrow is gonna represent plumbing to the Building Code Review Board, each for a 2-year term through December 31st, 2025. Can I have a motion to approve these guys?
So moved.
Second. Moved by Alderman Perkins, seconded by Alderman McAdams. Any questions or comments, since we've had some on appointing commissioners? Yes, ma'am.
I will just note that, not specifically for these commissions, but I have had some complaints regarding people not being reinstated for the same commission.
Yep, and that's why each and every council member now has a complete list of all the commissioners, their term expiration, and I'm really looking forward to everyone helping carry the load on reappointments and recommendations, interviewing, all those things around commissioners going forward. So really looking forward to everyone's participation in that. Any other comments? Hearing none, roll call please on number 1.
Larson,
yes,
Smith,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
McAdams.
Yes.
Verbic,
Yes.
Zasada,
Yes.
Mayor Barnes.
Yes.
7 aye.
Awesome, so those two are appointed, which ultimately, and I don't know if you want to comment, city manager, but we're basically updating the code, the codes that we have in the city of DeKalb, the building codes. And these are 2 volunteers that stepped up to help us bring us up to current standards at least.
Right, and we have 3 others who are sitting, fulfilling their terms. So we're going to begin on that tomorrow.
Then number 2, reappointing Max Maxwell. Can I have a motion to bring reappointing Max Maxwell to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a 5-year term through December 31st, 2028, and reappointing him as chair for a 2-year term through December 31st, 2025?
So moved.
second,
Moved by Alderwoman Zazada, seconded by Alderwoman Larson. Any comments or questions on Max? All right, hearing none, roll call please.
Smith,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
McAdams.
Yes.
Verbic,
Yes.
Zasada,
Yes.
Larson,
yes,
Mayor Barnes.
Yes.
7 aye.
Awesome. So moving on to agenda item G, consent agenda. Number 1, joint review board meeting minutes of October 27, 2023. Number 2, minutes of the regular city council meeting of January 22nd, 2024. Number 3, accounts payable and payroll through February 12th, 2024 in the amount of $3,176,648.68. Number 4, investment and bank balance summary through December 2023. Number 5, year-to-date revenues and expenditures through December 2023. 6, crime-free housing bureau report, January 2024. And 7, FY 2023 fourth quarter human services funding report. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
second,
Moved by Alderman Verbic, seconded by Alderwoman Larson. Any comments or questions, council? Hearing none, roll call please.
Perkins,
Yes.
McAdams.
Yes.
Verbic,
Yes.
Zasada,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Mayor Barnes.
Yes.
7-I.
The consent agenda has been approved. Moving on to agenda item H, public hearings. The first one, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing at 6:05 on February 12th. This is a public hearing regarding a third amendment to an annexation agreement for Lot 8 in the Glidden Crossing subdivision located at 1130 South Malta Road in order to accommodate an 8,000 square foot fire station within the city of DeKalb. Is there anyone here from the public that would want to comment on that? Hearing none. Council, anything? If not, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing at 6:05. So that moves us on to public hearing number 2. I'm going to go ahead and open this public hearing at 6:06 on February 12th. This is a public hearing regarding an application for a body art establishment licensure at 150 East Lincoln Highway, Seance at Tiffany's. Is there anyone here as part of the public that wants to comment during that time?
Yes.
Okay, you can come up to the council there, or the podium.
Hello. Sorry, it's been a bit of a long day. My husband had surgery today, and this has been a little intimidating, so.
No worries. Don't let it be.
Okay, so I'm Randy Lockhart, and I requested the hearing. The city code says that there cannot be more than 3 body art establishment licenses in the downtown area, or any within 500 feet of each other. There are 3 already, and we are only 125 feet from a tattoo establishment across the street from us. However, I'm not requesting for a traditional tattoo type setting. It's for cosmetic permanent makeup services. So eyebrows and eyeliners and freckles and whatnot. So it is not traditional tattooing by any means, so it's not in any direct competition of the other shops. I would be the only one performing it. The shop also, it is open as a boutique as well, and tarot readings, so it's more of a healing arts and beauty type boutique. So I am requesting that I be allowed to perform the permanent makeup services there. It just happens to fall under the same license title as Body Art Establishment, but we would not be a tattoo shop. Sorry.
City manager, I don't know if you have additional background.
Yeah,
for us?
but first of all, for Randy, if I may call you by your first name, and for people in the audience, this is sort of unusual. It's the only time in our city, or the only occasion in our city code where a person just talking about being able to open or continue a business has to go through a public hearing. And this is different than the public hearing we just had, because it's more like the council as a panel and judges whether the complainant or the appellant in this case has a case to be supported or not. So you're acting as judge of this in a way. So it's a little peculiar, but with all respect, I'll proceed and just offer a few things. So another complicating thing is that our definitions in the code, which are part of your background for tonight's meeting, are broader than just tattooing. It talks about body art as being other things, including some sculpting and permanent sculpting. So there isn't a lot of wiggle room here, which is why we brought it to you to see what you think. As you mentioned, if the council believes that this is a fourth, then it's not permitted, and you can act accordingly. If you feel it's different, and you've done your homework and looked at the background and so forth in terms of the definition, then you will rule differently. So that's all I can tell you. Our estimation and different voices in the professional city staff feel that there really isn't any wiggle room, that what she proposes to do with the best intentions actually fits in with the definitions that are already in the code. So another alternative is that you decide to continue this because you want to change the code to allow her to do her business. But that's not what is asked for. It's either can I do this or can I not.
So for clarification too, I mean, you mentioned you're the only one that does it. I thought Proton has a not similar service. I don't want to compare the two because I'm not as familiar. But Proton has a service like this or adjacent to it maybe?
I'm not an expert, but I can tell you.
Well, go ahead,
Yeah,
Randy.
Maybe she.
They do have a tattoo artist there who does perform traditional tattoos as well. And she does do freckle tattoos and areola tattoos. And I believe scar camouflage, which I'm not trained in the areola tattoos, and that's for like breast cancer survivors. But the only services that we would offer the same is the scar camouflage and the freckles. However, primarily that's a 10% of my clientele, and probably like, I don't want to speak for them, but even a smaller percentage of hers, because she is a traditional tattoo artist. So a lot more of the clients I would be seeing who's generally eyebrows and lips and eyeliner pretty much all day.
Okay. And
So.
one last further clarification, then I'll open it up for comments. You won't be providing tattoos, normal, traditional, rose on my arm tattoos as part of this service?
Correct.
Okay.
I know it falls under the same license, but
Yep.
it's not what I'm trained in, and it's not what I wish to do. There's a couple great tattoo salons
Yeah.
or shops right around here.
Okay.
So,
All right. Alderman Perkins, I think, had his hand raised first.
So I've got a couple things, and I guess it kind of starts with the thought of, is there something we can do to limit the scope so that it doesn't grow into a tattooing business at a point? That's number one. And the second one's more of a rhetorical question. What if she was a plastic surgeon?
So this is, if I may describe.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just because you're changing the body in
Yeah.
some way, and I think we would be happy if we wanted a plastic surgeon to move downtown, but.
Yeah, this is what it's called microblading, you know, and it's, you know, and I don't want to misdescribe it, but it's basically it's a permanent but semi-coloring of your lips and eyebrows and, you know, an eyeliner and things like that. And you need a state of Illinois body art establishment license because it involves certain needles in tattooing and things like that. But it's not your traditional tattoo, you know, with like you said, the rose on the arm and whatnot. And so to answer your first question is that if you wanted to allow, so because it's microblading, they need a body art establishment license from us. And our code, as it currently says, is, you know, is that there's only 3 that's allowed in that area, right? So if you wanted to allow it, you could continue it, right? We would have to change the code to allow it, and then the condition to limit it from becoming a tattoo is that would be a condition as part of the license that would be allowed, is to say that you're only allowed to do microblading, for example. That's something that you could do. Now, for your second question about plastic surgery, that's a different use and a different license. This type of body art establishment licensure and use has been regulated by past councils in this fashion, you know, whether you want to change
Okay.
that.
Alderwoman Larson?
I just have more of a comment that normally I'm one of these, like, we have too many, you know, we don't need this. But I do know, having some traditional tattoos, but as I'm aging, the services you provide of lips and eyebrows and eyeliner, it's definitely more makeup and looks and like almost salon work, I'd say. And so many of the traditional tattoo parlors, they got a vibe. And you got to be a real competent, maybe older woman to walk into some of those and say, could you do my eyebrows? I mean, you know, and
They
so
have a
I
vibe.
can see the need for somebody who is just, it's really salon, and just one of your services would be a permanent or semi-permanent makeup. So normally this goes against but I can kind of see it.
Thank you.
And if not there, maybe you could find another place, because I think the city could use it.
yeah, may I speak to, or do I wait?
Yeah, please, go ahead.
So with the microblading, just in case we go that route, you do use a tattoo machine. So it's not just the microblading with the needle. But I do, it's not offered anywhere in this, I mean, the closest place to go get it done is like 30 miles away. And Oh, I'm so sorry. It has been a long day, like I
Yeah.
said.
No
My
worries,
husband had
ma'am.
spine surgery. What was I going to say? I'm so sorry. It slipped my mind.
Well, think about it. I got another
Yeah.
comment, and we'll go from there. Alderwoman Zada.
Sure. So I think I'm certainly along the lines of what Alderman Larson is saying. I think that I read the ordinance that we have on the books and stuff and the way it's designed, and it seems like clearly there's a paragraph on microblading. And so is the lip stuff and the eyeliner stuff all also called microblading?
It's actually called Permanent Makeup Services, so PMU.
Okay.
And microblading falls under that.
Okay.
But because I do minimal microblading, I do most of it with the machine, but you use like a lower voltage and whatnot. And I remembered now to speak to the Vibe. We just opened this week, and if you haven't seen it, it is beautiful in there, and it is very inviting, and it's blue and old Victorian, and it doesn't look like a tattoo shop, which I've got plenty, so I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying it is definitely a different place that we are hoping that people feel comfortable to come in and feel that way.
So, sorry, that was.
Go ahead.
For me, this is all about the free market should be dictating whether or not we have another shop like this within a specific physical vicinity. And I mean, if they're filling a vacant space, I feel like they absolutely should have the freedom to run their business there. And I think that we should be amending the ordinance. I don't know when this ordinance was originally written, but we should be amending it to make sure that they can do business. I think even in the past 10, 15, 20 years, the culture of body art has changed significantly to where, 20 years ago, it would have been an undesirable thing more so, 25 years ago or so. But, so I'm just saying, I think that culture has changed. I think we need to update our ordinance and make it so that it's more reasonable for them to do business, because if the free market is supporting them doing their business, why shouldn't they be able to do it in a reasonable location where it's drawing more people downtown? I can see getting my lips done and then going to eat, so.
I agree, but I mean, our Vibe, let's call it, we have passed ordinances in the past restricting like video gambling. And I think that is the purview of council to always figure out ultimately what is it we want. Because if we let the free market run wild, the free market can also take us in directions we may not want to go. Alderman McAdams.
Well, I want to support what Alderwoman Zasada said. It's a free market, and it's a different world than 30, 40 years ago when sailors and criminals were the only ones that got tattoos. I absolutely think that a filled retail space is better than an empty one, and I'm supporting in either overlooking today or changing the ordinance so that it does fit. I really don't think that that's going to bring anything but more business to downtown, which is exactly what we're trying to do.
Thank you.
Any others? Alderman Smith.
Probably, Matt, for you, we'd have to amend the UDO, correct? And then define
Not the UDO necessarily.
Municipal
but-
code.
But, yeah, the municipal code, this, the chapter for body art establishments, and whether you want to amend, so right now there's a cap of 3 in the district, in the central business district area, so an easy amendment would be 4, if you wanted to
And the
change 3 or 4.
distance.
But,
We're
that
on
would
it.
be your prerogative.
Right, would that require Dan to do work then to notify everybody, or?
No,
I mean-
not this one, because it's not part of the UDO.
Okay, and we haven't heard from any of the other shops, yay or nay, or?
Not unless somebody.
Okay, I'm just
Here.
throwing stuff out, so, for my own good.
Yeah.
Sir?
I was just going to say, it may be an answer to the earlier question about are there some limits and could you grow into it and so forth. I think that's never going to be enforceable. I mean, we're not going to do raids on tattoo parlors and microblading and so forth. And so it's really the honor system, this is what you do, and this is how you do it, and how often you do it. So I just wanted to make that point. We're not going to send police officers looking to keep.
But I
I'm
would
not
hope.
going to break any rules.
Yeah, I hope if we pass this and we modify the ordinance, though, I mean, we do have some establishments that have invested in their companies with the understanding that they're not going to have a direct competitor across the street. And you're saying you're not going to do that. So I assume if we do pass this and make a modification, we can provide some guidelines. I know we're not sending in SEAL Team 6 to verify what every business is doing, But yeah,
But we run into this, whether it's a number of liquor establishments of a
Yeah.
certain kind, video gaming, those that have the licenses are more favored in terms of economically than having it open-ended. But I just want to point out, we're not going to be regulating or enforcing this unless competitors are so insistent and actually come to council meetings and say, I think this person, you know, whatever, which has happened on a rare occasion. But, so your direction is what we're looking for here.
and ultimately, this public hearing, you know, we'll make a decision. Well, if we approve it, it doesn't come before council again, right? The way this is written.
You can't approve it. Now, what you need to do is probably direct us to come back with a couple of
Okay.
options.
And
One
that'll be
might
the modification of the ordinance that we would approve.
One might be
Right.
no limit.
Which would give the opportunity for any existing
Yeah.
establishments to be
Yeah.
able to come forward and
Right.
talk. Okay.
Right.
Alderman Perkins?
So one thought on that, so I'm not really interested in expanding the number of tattoo parlors, period.
I thought you meant ordinances. Yes.
Or, you know, but I'm very interested in giving them some latitude for their business, because I think it is a different business. And I would prefer when you come back with something, it isn't expanding the number of tattoo parlors. You know, maybe we make an exception for these folks and we leave the number.
We're spending a lot of time on this, and we've got a
Yeah.
lot of things, but
Yeah.
I will say that the lines are pretty blurred here, and just as Randy's been presenting, you know, she's kind of run the range of definitions that are in the code already, so, you know.
I think I'm hearing a lot of support
Yeah.
for this.
But I hear that.
That
I
ultimately,
hear that.
I could take a motion at this point to,
Bring it back.
yeah, to approve the request to bring it back before council, modification to the ordinance to allow, I'll leave it up to our city attorney to come up with the technical terms to further define your establishment itself. Does that sound good? Yes, Alderwoman Larson?
Can we do something even, to me, it's all about, tattoo parlors have big tattoo signs, because that is their business. Your business is other things. And so I think, for me personally, if it says, you know, seance by whatever, and, you know, tarot reading and stuff, and then there's beauty services available, and it's like, until I go in and start looking, or somebody tells me, I wouldn't even know that there's a tattoo artist doing makeup, permanent makeup.
Right.
It's all about this other Victorian vibe thing, boutique.
Yes.
That would go a long ways for me.
Yeah, I have no desire to put a neon sign on there. We did have our window decal put on this week, but I took off permanent makeup from the decal and had them just put tarot guidance and metaphysical boutique. But I did talk to them, and they can come put permanent makeup right under it, but it would be a little bit of font
Just-
and a white
yeah.
sticker right below.
I think most people
So,
wouldn't know what that means.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's not- It doesn't scream tattoo.
Yeah.
And if you gave us a picture of what that sign would look like, we could make that a condition of the licensure, that would be the sign that's approved, and it could be something else.
I think we're on board, but if you want to comment some more, okay?
One real quick thing. So while we were sitting here, I did a one-card tarot poll just to see what it said, and it came up as the Ten of Pentacles. And as you know about the Ten of Pentacles, that represents the culmination of life's journeys. There's a sense of fulfillment that usually results from hard work in all of life's facets, and this is the end of the path, and it's full of joy. So I think the cards have already told us it's coming.
Okay. So with that, I said I would take a motion to approve moving forward to have the city attorney bring forth a modification to our ordinance to allow, and we'll leave it up to him on specific terms, to allow your establishment without it becoming a tattoo parlor. Because that's a completely different story, and I think something we're not necessarily, majority is not on board for. Does that sound good?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Alderman, what?
I don't think, can you have an emotion?
I don't know. That's all you need?
It's fine, it's fine. Okay.
A motion and a second? Okay, I
keep
got a
it in
motion
order.
by
Gotta
Alderman
keep it in
Perkins
line.
and a second by Alderman Larson. Roll call, please.
McAdams,
Yes.
Verbic,
Yes.
Zasada,
1 second,
Yes.
Randy.
Larson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Mayor Barnes.
Yes.
7-0.
All right, so we'll bring that forward at a future date.
Okay.
Last question I have for you. You said you're already open. I'm curious, you opened but not knowing that you're going to be able to perform this particular service?
Correct.
Okay.
So I had a very old application for the permanent license, so I didn't see the 500 feet thing until after I'd already submitted the application.
Yeah.
But I believe in what we did and what we do, and I knew that if this did not go, we're in a year lease, that we were gonna ride it out and see what happens, and, maybe find a different location in a year. A lot can happen
Oh, I
in a
bet there's
year.
salons that would love to
Yeah,
align
and
with you. Yeah.
our first day, we did incredible. We had.
Good.
And we made rent on Saturday, so, and we've had a lot of support online. So, either way, I promise
Yeah.
to stay within all codes, even if this doesn't happen. It's just been incredible just to be in part of the community, just this one day that we were open and
Yeah.
whatnot.
So that's where I would encourage all landlords and any that are listening or any in the audience here, whenever you do rent to someone, it's important that you communicate to the tenant as well as to the city what kind of business is going to go there, just to make sure that there isn't something on the books that could prevent them from doing business after they spend considerable amount of money renovating and are paying rent. This isn't the first time something like that happened, so that's why I was asking that
It
question.
was a
So-
risk we were willing to take, and
Yep.
I honestly, I did not see this going the way that it has, and I know nothing's decided yet, but I wanted to make sure that I showed up, and I appreciate your time. But like I said, I believe in what we're doing, and
Yeah.
we're just really excited about the opportunity.
Well, thanks for coming out tonight. You don't have to stay, you can go
Okay.
at this point.
Thank
So
you.
have a great
You guys
night.
have just been wonderful. I do want to get home to my husband, so.
Yeah, exactly.
But thank you, everyone, so much.
Thank you, Randy.
And we
Thank
will.
you for choosing DeKalb.
Yep,
Yeah.
welcome.
Congratulations.
All right, with that, yes. With that, I'm going to go ahead and, oh, thank you. Give me a second here, Alderman Smith. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing at 6:26. That moves us on to, let me get reestablished here. All right, that moves us on to agenda item I-1, considerations. We have a bunch of public comment on this one, so I'm just going to go down the list. I cannot read this completely, so I'm going to go Salvador Arguello. And you can tell me how badly I butchered it, but it's hard to read. All right. Yeah, if you could just repeat your name, that would be great.
Salvador Arguello.
Okay, and also Salvador, you have 3 minutes. We'll have a timer going. I have to limit everyone to 3 minutes that does public comments.
No problem.
Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'm supporting the immigrants because I'm one of them. Me and my wife, and I have a daughter and a son. And the reason I'm here is because as an immigrant, we came to the United States in 1986. And my wife was able to go to NIU and to get a degree as a teacher. And now she's teaching in West Chicago, the kindergartens, and Spanish. And the reason that she was hired because she speaks the 2 languages. And obviously, you see that we are a lot of Spanish-speaking people, and not only in DeKalb County, but in West Chicago and in Illinois. My daughter, she went to study psychology here in NIU too, and she's working in the high school.
That's
and the
awesome.
reason that she was hired is because she understands the population on the Spanish kids. And obviously, she graduated and speaks the 2 languages. I have another son who studied accounting, and he's in Kansas City, working for a company. And so basically, what we want is an opportunity in this great country to come and make the difference, and giving back after years of hard work to the community. Luisa, my wife, is doing that. And my daughter is doing that. My son is doing that. And I was able to open my own company. That's unbelievable. Somebody with almost no education, I came and opened my own company. It's Chihuahua Distribution. And you wonder, what do you distribute? Tortilla chips, but not the fake, the real ones, El Milagro tortilla chips. I have all these Walmarts here, the Jewels and snacks. I have like 100 stores.
It's great.
Not only that, but I was able to hire people from Cuba who they were doctors, but obviously they cannot practice here until they finish. They have to redo the whole thing. So he was able to go to NIU and finish the career, and now he's working in a company. So all we need and all we want is opportunity. And we came to America for different reasons. You know, Venezuela now is having hard times. And not only for us, but for our kids. And somehow we can go back into the community, giving back. So that's my 3 minutes.
Thank you, Salvador.
Any questions?
Appreciate you.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
And I think we all can agree, we're all, I mean, I'm looking at the audience, but I think each and every one of us are immigrants of this country, or our family are immigrants. So love hearing your story, Salvador, and congratulations on all your success. Lynn Nguyen.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
I'm going to read you a poem by Wasan Shire. Home. No one leaves home unless home is the mouth of a shark. You only run for the border when you see the whole city running as well. Your neighbors running faster than you, breath bloody in their throat. The boy you went to school with, who kissed you dizzy behind the old tin factory, holding a gun bigger than his body. You only leave home when home won't let you stay. No one leaves home unless home chases you, fire under feet, hot blood in your belly, and even then you carry the anthem under your breath, only tearing up your passport in airport toilet, sopping as each mouthful of paper make it clear that you will not be going back. You have to understand that no one would put their children in a boat unless the sea is safer than the land. No one burned their palms under trains, beneath carriages. No one spent days and nights in the cold bladder of a truck, feeding on newspaper, unless the mind travel means something more than journey. No one calls on the fences, want to be beaten, want to be PT. No one chooses refugee camp or strip searches where your body is left aching, or prison, because prison is safer than a city of fire. And one prison guard in the night is safer than 14 men who look like your father. No one could take it, could stomach it. No one's skin would be tough enough to go home blacks, refugee, dirty immigrant, asylum seeker, sucking our country dry, dark with their hands out. They smell strained, savage, mess up their own country, and now they want to mess up ours? How do the words, the dirty looks, roll up your back? Maybe because the blows is softer than a limb torn off, or the words are more tender than 14 men between your legs, or the insult are easier to swallow than rubble, than bone, than your child body in pieces. I want to go home. But home is the mouth of a shark. Home is the barrel of the gun, and no one would leave home or let home chase you to the shore, unless home told you to quicken your legs. Leave your clothes behind, crawl to the desert, wade through the ocean, drown, save, be hungry, beg, forget pride. Your survival is more important. No one leaves home unless home is a sweaty voice in your ear saying, leave, run away from me now. I don't know what I become, but I know that anywhere is safer than here.
Thank you, Lynn. Dan Kenny.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm here to speak on behalf of supporting the application we would like to see the city of DeKalb make for funding for the migrant aid work that we're trying to do as an organization. You'll be hearing from Frankie shortly. He'll be talking about what steps we've taken so far since our meeting that the city organized with New Hope. And so I represent tonight the DeKalb County Community Gardens. We have made a commitment to this work on terms of providing food for the migrants as they, and the asylum seekers as they come to our community, and trying to meet that need. As you also know, other social service agencies are going to be responding to that need. if it should arise. And so the grant that the city is eligible to apply for would be of great assistance to all of us. Just like the city, we all have budgets, and we don't have this in our budgets. And so any extra expenses that we will incur, which will be considerable if such a situation should arise, then whatever funding we can get from grants would be extremely important. So I urge the city council to support the application of this grant, for this funding purposes. One of the things I wanted to also mention is that since we're not on a train route, we may not see a busload of migrants or asylum seekers dropped in our city. However, we are seeing individuals come into our city from south of the border, and they are staying in 1 or 2 families in a house, or 3 or 4 families in a house, and so on. So the social service agencies are already seeing an increase in need. DeKalb County Community Gardens has seen an increase in need for food for many reasons, but that is one of the reasons. And so I would also urge the city to consider, we're not just talking about necessarily a large emergency situation, we're talking about a chain migration situation that will continue over the next year or 2. So anything that the city can do to get additional funding for that would be very appreciated and very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Stephen Pace?
Good evening. My name is Steve Pace. My wife and I have been residents of Sycamore for over 34 years since I started working at NIU in 1988. We have been members of Crossview Church since moving to Sycamore in 1989. My wife and I have been involved with Ministries to International since our days as graduate students at Wheaton College, where we met. We have been associated with several organizations in DeKalb, such as Neighbors House and Network of Nations. Neighbors House provides homework help and educational enrichment to underprivileged elementary and middle school students in Sycamore and DeKalb. Many of the children at Gideon's Court in DeKalb and Mason Manor in Sycamore that Neighbors House ministers to are from immigrant families. And so they're from Saudi Arabia, they're from Venezuela, from different countries, and so they're challenged in school. Network of Nations is a parachurch ministry dedicated to forging friendships between international students and immigrants and the local community. We coordinate local churches and organizations to provide a dinner every Friday night at Emmanuel Lutheran Church. We provide weekly English conversation time for immigrants at different locations and host a twice-a-month meeting for spouses of international students and other immigrant women for conversation and fellowship. Network of Nations has just opened an office and hospitality and drop-in center at Baptist Campus Ministry at 449 Normal Road in DeKalb. We believe that Crossview and the organizations we have worked with would be very supportive of a coordinated effort to be welcoming community to newly arrived immigrants. State funding would be essential to providing support for expanded servicing to a growing immigrant population in DeKalb and Sycamore. I would encourage you to look at state funding for this organization that you're meeting with.
Thank you, Steve. Ma'am, ma'am, you didn't give me your name, so I can't call you up, but if you want to come up and tell us what your name, and you have 3 minutes, please.
For fear of my safety, first of all, witnesses, which I am, should not be forced to be filmed. The city of DeKalb should be held accountable for that. During this time of social justice, racial equality, and equity concerns, it's outrageous DeKalb City Council members, DeKalb City Mayor Colin Barnes, and Carolyn Morris Zazada, who know about the official misconduct of DeKalb City Manager Bill Nicholas, are running for higher office, the 76th House District. I witnessed that when my brother was reporting witness intimidation by the DeKalb Police and by the police chiefs, DeKalb City Manager Bill Nicholas told my brother he didn't give a damn that he was reporting race discrimination and told my brother to shut up. And then, after reporting his official misconduct, DeKalb City Manager Bill Nicholas, for instance, retaliated against my brother by filing a false complaint against my brother and directing the DeKalb Police to break the law and repeatedly threaten my brother with arrest, with police telling him he can't file a police report against DeKalb City Manager Bill Nicholas to even document Bill Nicholas's official misconduct. Though my brother reported this matter to the city of DeKalb, and he still wants his anonymity, he came out publicly to you regarding the official misconduct of DeKalb City Manager Bill Nicholas. But he was then repeatedly threatened not to attend further DeKalb City Council meetings by the city of DeKalb. And DeKalb Police, in violation of our civil rights, and still to this date, the official misconduct of DeKalb City Manager Bill Nicholas has never been officially investigated, officially addressed, to protect DeKalb City Manager Bill Nicholas, and to cover up discrimination, witness intimidation, official misconduct, and retaliation. Having witnessed how my brother was being discriminated against and being intimidated, I, like others, wanted to come forward too, but feared reprisal and forced loss of anonymity. I, an Hispanic female victim of discrimination and witness intimidation by the city of DeKalb, want my anonymity and no reprisals, but this is criminal. DeKalb City Mayor Colin Barnes and Carolyn Morris Zazada know about the serious matter, are by their silence allowing discrimination and witness intimidation against Hispanics to continue, taking the corruption being above the law to a higher office without representing in any official, transparent, permanent public record that the official misconduct of DeKalb City Manager Bill Nicholas has been addressed and resolved when they are legally required or should legally be required to do so for transparency and accountability and to protect the public. As a victim, my brother courageously spoke out at the DeKalb City Council meetings, but to date, the official misconduct of Bill Nicholas has never been officially addressed and resolved, resulting in my family and I continuing to be
Thank you, ma'am.
harmed,
That's your 3
including my
minutes.
2 disabled brothers. Going forward,
Ma'am,
I demand
that's
the
it.
city of DeKalb.
Ma'am, I have to cut you off. 3 minutes is all we allow for public comments, ma'am.
All right, thank you for your
Thank you for coming
time.
out. Jeff Miller, please.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for the
Evening.
opportunity. My name is Jeff Miller, and I'm a retired teacher. My entire 29-year career, I taught immigrants either as an English as a second language teacher or a bilingual teacher or a dual language teacher. I also taught for over 20 years a course for Northern on language assessment to cohorts of teachers who had linguistically diverse students in their classrooms and needed to figure out how to meet their needs. But more important than these things about me is the fact that I consider myself to be a Christ follower. I attended the January 17th organizing meeting that the city and the township of DeKalb sponsored for community organizations to gather and discuss migrant aid. I did this so that I could report back to my church. And after reporting back to my pastor, he reported to the elders, and my church, Crossview, decided to answer the call. So we signed up volunteers, and this coming weekend we're launching a winter clothing collection in order to meet the needs and to love well the migrant families who might be arriving, as well as those that are already here. I understand that the number of students who are classified as homeless in DeKalb Public Schools doubled between 2022 and 2023. And often that homeless designation is synonymous with being immigrants. My church has decided to embrace a small but significant role to answer the city's call to muster resources proactively. At the January 17th organizing meeting, what I understood and what I got out of it was that the city was taking a stance, setting its will to love and compassionately welcome immigrants. And I applaud that. I think that if you think that requesting state funds to support that effort would go against that, then I think there's a lack of congruence and some hypocrisy there. DeKalb City should apply for assistance to support the work of our community partners, some of whom are already serving migrants from various countries, in the event of a mass arrival of asylum
You're at 3
seekers.
minutes, Jeff, and I wish I could let people continue, but
I
others
understand.
take advantage
Thank
of
you
it.
very much.
And it kills me to cut people off, but thank you for coming out tonight. All right, I would take a motion to bring this consideration to the floor.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Alderman Verbeek, seconded by Alderwoman Zazada. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. There's a considerable background to set this up for a general discussion, and I'm happy that we have people in the room tonight who want to speak to this. One person in particular I hope will speak before I add any more to what I've already written. That's Frankie DiCiaccio, who has been the co-coordinator of the DeKalb Migrant Aid, which is the organization that grew out of that meeting back in mid-January at the New Hope Missionary Baptist Church, and has grown from some few people that gathered afterward and put their names down and some contact information to over 70 people who have pledged in some fashion, much like the part of the congregation of the Crossview Church tonight. So I'd like to defer, if I may, to
Absolutely.
Frankie and let him make a presentation.
Yeah, come on up to the podium, Frankie. And also, before you start, Frankie, everyone that commented tonight, I highly encourage you, reach out to your U.S. Congressperson, reach out to your U.S. Senator, share the same thoughts that you have to make sure that this voice goes well beyond the city of DeKalb. Because we are just the city of DeKalb. This is literally a national issue that really needs to be addressed. They need to hear it, and I'm sure they already are, but the more people that they hear it from, the larger the voice gets. Frankie, welcome.
Sure. Hi, thank you. I have comments and some remarks I'm going to share. Before I do that, I want to just say to the woman who got up and spoke that I don't know the details of your situation, but I recognize how difficult it is to get up here and say something publicly like that. And I just want to recognize that, yeah, and I wish you resolution quickly. I'm here tonight for 2 reasons. First is to give you an update on DeKalb Migrant Aid and what we've been up to. And the second is to urge you to apply for a Supporting Municipalities for Asylum Seeker Services grant. I will be referring to it as SMAS, because Supporting Municipalities for Asylum Seeker Services is a bit of a mouthful, and I'm going to try to move expeditiously. So first, I'll begin with the update. As you know, because you did it, DeKalb passed an ordinance on January 8th that punishes bus companies hired by third parties to transport asylum seekers from the southern U.S. border to DeKalb. However, the ordinance did not provide a support plan for if or when these people find themselves here. At a subsequent community meeting, January 17th at New Hope, which has already been referenced, I volunteered to coordinate the creation and implementation of such a support plan along with Dave Becker, who is here this evening. These efforts have grown into DeKalb Migrant Aid, an ad hoc committee of dedicated volunteers with diverse areas of expertise and lived experiences. And some members of our committee are here tonight. We've spent the past few weeks researching, hearing from peer organizations and municipalities, and strategizing. And here are some highlights. As of this evening, 78 people have filled out our Google form, signing up to volunteer. These are local community members willing to offer their time and energy across an array of service areas. In addition to those individuals, members of our team have had dozens, literally dozens of fruitful conversations with local nonprofits, faith communities, and service organizations. We've learned about their scope, the services they are able to provide currently, and what they could or could not provide in the event of a large-scale arrival of asylum seekers. With this groundswell of community support behind us, we've been honing our plan. I know that an earlier version of our planning document appears in your very large pamphlet of materials. I won't go through that in too much detail, but I do have an updated version here that I'd like to pass out, if that's okay.
Sure.
Great.
Thank you.
So this document includes an emergency triage plan for the first 48 hours after a large-scale of arrival of asylum seekers, as well as longer-term goals. And it also lays out the process of applying for a SMAS grant and the process of dispersing those awarded funds. Like I said, I won't go through too much detail at the moment, but once I finish my remarks, if you have questions, I'm very happy to answer them. So that was first, the update. Things are looking pretty good. Second is the SMASS or SMAS funding. This grant, administered by the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus and the state of Illinois, must be applied for by a municipality. The money would help DeKalb serve any asylum seekers currently here and respond to any large-scale arrival of asylum seekers in the future. All services would be provided by local partner agencies, and the city's role would be twofold. First, apply for the grant, and if we are successful, second, disperse grant money to those partner agencies based on services rendered. We have identified 3 potential partner agencies to possibly collaborate with in the event we receive this funding. These are initial conversations, of course, and no final commitments have been made yet, and we continue also to meet with additional agencies to discuss if and how they could participate. The 3 potential partner agencies that we've identified include DeKalb County Community Gardens, Family Service Agency, and Northern Illinois University. We believe that these 3 agencies could cover the 5 service areas laid out in the grant description, which include housing, food, wraparound services, legal assistance, and health and wellness. To reiterate, these are potential collaborations that would require funding. The SMAS grant is a way to fund these efforts with outside money, helping us serve asylum seekers without tapping resources currently available for local DeKalb residents. In closing, I'd like to acknowledge that neither our ad hoc committee nor the DeKalb city government can solve our nation's immigration challenges. That task falls to our federal government. As Mayor, you indicated that we should all take these thoughts to our federal representatives and senators. However, they look increasingly unlikely to realize meaningful reforms in the near future. In the absence of federal action, our larger cities, including Chicago, are becoming overwhelmed by serving asylum seekers, which has led to discomfort in the best of situations and tragically to death in the worst of situations. Migration is a global phenomenon which will likely be exacerbated by geopolitical instability, war, and climate change in the near future. So whatever your politics, this is happening. DeKalb Migrant Aid and our collaborators are working to prepare for it. We're working to see the humanity in any person experiencing need, regardless of where they were born, what language they speak, or what they look like. We are working to embrace the idea of belonging that has so often been talked about in this city, and in fact, in this city council right here. We are working to offer compassion and meaningful support. Please help us. Please approve an application for this grant. Thank you.
City Manager.
Thank you, Frank. A couple of things. Just a few other notes on the SMAS. I call it SMAS.
SMAS?
Others do.
That'll work too.
The Illinois Department of Human Services reviews and coordinates SMAS funding applications. It's true the Metropolitan Mayors Conference, which deals with cities outside of Chicago in the collar counties. We're the ring around the collar. We're not part of the Metropolitan Caucus, but the Illinois Department of Human Services will take applications from any part of the state with this very important condition, which is that asylum seekers have to have documentation. And that documentation has to establish that they've gone through a process in the transition into our country from whatever point. If the application is accepted by the INS or the Homeland Security folks that are running that processing at a border, then the process for determination as to whether they can actually secure asylum status may take up to a year. And in that year, currently under federal law, persons who have gone through that legal process and have the paperwork to show it can legally stay in this country. They can apply for work. They can apply for Social Security, as a matter of fact, and other things. So, but the SMAS funding is tied to that. So when you fill out the application to the state agency, you have to identify the number of persons with that documentation. There's no way around that. Frankie and I have talked to the same people at the state level. So it isn't a matter of you tonight saying, I think that's a great idea, let's get some money, let's go to the state and let's get it. We have to document. So persons who may be immigrants or migrants from another source, but don't have that certification, will not qualify, will not help us qualify for whatever money it is we're seeking. So that's a technical point which unfortunately is writ large by the agency that will be reviewing grant requests. So we have to keep that in mind. I mention this because there are different sources of money, right? There's community donations. The city could come up with money that they thought was useful in conjunction with other efforts. And then there's the SMAS funding, which we know since September, well, actually, it's been in place since August of 2022, but it's mostly in 2023 from the middle of the year to the second round, which was just completed on January 31st, I believe. That most of the funding has been allocated to Illinois communities. So I believe, for instance, Oak Park, which was pretty early in applying and had persons that they had actually said to Chicago, please give us people that currently cannot be housed or fed with the resources available, about 150 people maybe. And they were spending about $350,000 a month with the SMAS funds, and they got 2 different installments. I don't know that they'll get there's possibly, I think very likely going to be a third round. I think the governor's administration has indicated that that's coming, but they haven't given a particular time. So funding seems to be the topic, and people are here tonight looking for some additional funds that would help local resources. We can't ignore that we will still need local resources, and state money will help. And I think the question to you then is, should there be also city money involved in this? And that's something for you to decide and give us some direction on.
And the state money, just to be clear, it's reimbursed. This
It's
isn't a grant we're
reimbursement.
applying for to get money.
We would have to front the money, so if we asked for $150,000, we'd have to find a way to make that money on our end fluid. We'd have to determine under what conditions that would be dispersed, whether it be to local agencies, directly to people, and then we'd have to have documentation, copies of invoices and receipts and things. And then present those once a month probably to the state agency and get reimbursed.
Okay.
If I can speak to that briefly, there is also the potential, if there's an acute immediate need, to build that into the application and say that, like, upon approval of this application, we would request X dollars upfront to, you know, address a specific project. There's no guarantee, but that is also a possibility.
Okay, council. Yes.
So I want to say it's a great idea that we're doing all these proactive activities and that we're starting to get this planning in place. I'm strongly supportive of providing the funding and making sure that we address this problem if and when it does reach the borders of DeKalb. I think it's extremely important that we pool our resources and that we gather together. We get these lists together. I like this idea. This is a fantastic idea. Makes it very simple and very easy to see what the next step is. And I did want to address one thing. The United States Constitution, the 6th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, guarantees that an accused person has a right to be confronted with the witnesses against him. An important function of this constitutionality protected right is to provide the defense an opportunity to expose the possible interests, motives, and biases of prosecution witnesses. So if you have an accusation of law breaking in this country, the proper venue is a court of law. It would be inappropriate to ask the Chamber of Commerce to do an investigation. It's inappropriate to ask the city council to do an investigation. We are not provided with those tools, but a court of law would be the right place to address that. In the meanwhile, making an accusation without identifying yourself is somewhat suspect because, unfortunately, sometimes people lie. And so I think that if we have an accusation of law breaking, that should definitely not be presented here, but should definitely present it in the court of law, and that's where I think that should go. Other than that, thank you for your help.
Council, comments, questions? Yes, Alderwoman Zazata.
So back to the item at hand. Just want to be clear about what I'm communicating about. It sounds like, from what the city manager is saying, we need to identify the number of people with that documentation in order to do the application. It sounds like Frankie is saying that we need, we could also express an acute immediate need, perhaps.
Specifically, I was responding to the question about how the money comes in, so that it generally is a reimbursement at the end of the month. And if we have an acute immediate need, we could build into our grant application a request for upfront funding.
Sure. Okay, thank you. That makes sense. So yeah, I guess the big challenge here then is identifying those people, and without the identification, it puts us at a standstill. And so, are there any solutions from this body of ways that we could find numbers that are already being served in the community who may actually have that paperwork?
So we've talked to, when we first, a month ago, when the meeting was reported in the media and people were talking about it more generally, we contacted the school district because there was some just general conversation about, well, maybe there are children being schooled who have been enrolled by persons who may fit the description that the state grant program calls out. And so for about a week, that was investigated, and the response I got was that persons who may be recent arrivals to the community, or our community, may have been in the country for a while, but have just been enrolled in our schools, have been enrolled in programs that are supported by federal funding, the McKinney-Vento program, which is primarily focused on homeless youth, but also the families that may be involved in that as well, which provides housing, temporary housing, food, 3 meals a day, and can connect people with wraparound services, although only limited funding toward supporting that over time. But it's a pretty robust program, and it's federally funded. So this is not the same program. And none of these people had documentation that they were asylum seekers from the INS or the Homeland Security folks. So, and I reported that in my background. So we're
Yeah, I
looking.
saw
We're open to knowing more. It's something that, as the gentleman who first spoke, he's part of the family, been here for a long time and done very well, and we encourage that. That's what we want. We want to embrace people and give people opportunities. They've found their own opportunities, and it's assumed some employers have helped along the way. But that's not what this program is about, and that's not what SMAS is about. So now that's just one pot of money at the state level. So that's not the universe of funding that might be available. I don't know if the funding program or campaign has we haven't had a lot of time, had a month. But certainly there are local resources. I saw some people over the weekend. I had lunch at a local restaurant and said, where do we donate? I said, well, that's not up and running yet, but I gave them Frankie's name, and I don't know if they've contacted you. And again, I'll repeat, if in the end there's going to be some city financing, either up front or somewhere along the way, it's up to the council to say, we're willing to have you, the city manager, find what you think is affordable and bring that to us as a proposal that you can act on.
I'd like to speak to two challenges with
Frankie,
collecting data.
I'd like council
Oh, I
to
apologize.
have
Apologies.
our time here.
Mhm.
Yeah, Aldermember.
Frankie and everyone else, thank you for all that you're doing. From a standpoint of the backup, where you refer to us fronting funds for the services that would come upon us, of course, is that a limit then that we need to work on together? Is that what we're talking about? In other words, we're fronting the money and then we will be reimbursed for that money. Is there a limit? Is that what we need to discuss?
Well, the limit is partly, if you're talking about that same program that Frankie presented, which I've been speaking to, the SMAS program, the limit is what the state has been able to put in it. The last installment was 11 million, but as you know, Chicago is also a recipient and some larger cities to the east, so that money goes quickly, considering the number of people that are involved in Illinois. But I assume, and I've talked to the director of the program, Frankie has too, some other staffers, and it would appear that if we could justify the ask with a defined need, just like anything else, you want to buy a truck. That's a silly example, but I mean, you have to show that you actually need a truck and so forth, and the state money might be there, or you want to do a water system improvement, but you have to define the need. That's typically how it works at higher levels, and it works for us too. So there's no getting around that. The question about reimbursement or not, or we have to front money, either way, there's a couple options for you. You front money because you anticipate you'll be able to qualify for some of the state level funding, but you don't have it yet, and you haven't qualified. And if you're willing to spend that anyway, why not come up with, and there's probably more conversation to be had. It's not just the persons who would be receiving the services, it's the people who would be providing the services who may also want to be reimbursed for some of their services. So along the way, local social services, without even naming the names, there are some in the audience tonight and represented, and there are people who will need to take on additional caseload and so forth. And so will the agencies ask us for some reimbursement? Most likely. So that's another allowable expense by the SMAS program. So we don't have a budget because we don't have a demography yet, or not a demography, but a population identified. So if you said to me, threw out a number, $50,000, I'd have to tie that to something. And I'd have to really probably talk to a few of the social service agencies and just say, if we're to provide this, what would we do? Now, Dan's agency provides food and such services. So I'd have a conversation with Dan and just say, what do you think you would need? Because the food comes from somewhere, and people prepare it and package it and deliver it and so forth. Same with mental health services, other social services. We've got a wonderful social net in town, some 30 to 32 agencies that are working every day, and I would imagine that many of them would be involved. So there's another expense. And how would we come up with a budget? I could try to do that. I can't deliver one to you tonight, but that's something we could think about.
What is the oh, sorry. Did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I did. Go ahead. But thank you. I think from a standpoint of, okay, let's say we had a sudden need and it's X amount of dollars. Certainly we need to make sure that we can afford that as a city and not impact the rest of our services. But what would you anticipate then the turnaround for reimbursement? What would be that time frame, or do we know what that time frame is to recoup X number of dollars? Because again, our operations are reliant on a very tight budget, and where does this extra come from? Can we do it? How much is that? And then when will we get that back? Right.
Well, if we don't have 5, 10, 15, 2, doesn't matter. Some people who we know have that certification that the state body will want, then the answer is we don't know about reimbursement because we can't produce the data that's needed to justify it. Because at the state level, they're audited, we're audited, we have to show there's an end result, and this many people are served, and they're served within a program that we met all the checkpoints on. Where would the money come from? There isn't a corner of the budget you allocated, except for the social service pieces, the $600,000 I mentioned in the background, which is already obligated. I don't recommend that we intercept or interrupt that process. You'd be getting a proposal from me to go into our general fund reserve, do that by way of a budget amendment, park that money in an appropriate line item, and it would be there. Now, I'm several steps ahead of myself here, but if that is how you wanted to do it, mechanically, that's how it would work.
But ultimately, I think to answer your question, I mean, the state of Illinois is traditionally delayed in reimbursement. I know they're projecting $1 billion deficit going forward, so I imagine it's not going to be we apply and a week later we'll receive those funds. Hopefully we would receive the reimbursement from the state of Illinois, but it would probably be longer than we would want it to be, if I had to guess.
I would like to see it as a component of our growth. So in other words, to the point of, yes, immigration will continue. How do we responsibly support that locally? And with our growth in business and industry, how do we carve out whatever that piece is? I don't know what that piece is yet, but how could we carve out something looking into the future to be able to have it readily available and not put our other operations at risk and not worry as much how long that reimbursement will take, is what I'm looking at.
Alderman Perkins.
So first of all, thanks for the work you guys are doing. Great stuff. I think it's great work that needs to be done. But the grant application process, any grant application, is going to be consuming. So when we say the city is going to do it, we will be doing a grant application with our existing resources, right? So, and then a key element of this grant application is quantifying the size of the need. And we haven't done that yet, right? Do we know the size of the need? Do we have a number that we can put on that grant application?
We currently don't have a number. There are two reasons that I think we could point to for that. One is that some institutions are restricted from asking about immigration status, specifically about whether someone is in the asylum process. So I'm not entirely sure how the state expects us to get an exact number. The second challenge is that this is a vulnerable population who are not entirely likely to share openly and broadly their status because of fear of reprisal. There's a second data point that we will need to provide, which is connected to part of the conversation that has been going on, which is about capacity. And so when you ask about budget and how much we're asking for and how much we might get, that involves a conversation with those eventual partner agencies to see what could you do, how high could you go, and what it would cost. And it's also obviously a conversation for you all to consider what in your budget how much you could plan to send out each month prior to reimbursement, which I will speak briefly to. Peer municipalities have described what may be a surprisingly smooth reimbursement process, that at the end of the month, they do get that state money that they have spent.
It's unusual, but that's great to hear.
It's encouraging.
Yeah.
So I guess to continue with my thought there, though, because we're being asked to provide some direction on, do we apply for a grant? Do we use city resources to apply for a grant that we have undefined need for at this point? To me, I think it's a little premature for city resources to be applying for a grant. I think at a point in time, once we have our arms around the size of what the need is, if we get to that point in time, then I think it makes some sense. But I think it's just real early in the process, because we've got existing resources that I'm sure are tapped. And I'm apprehensive to send them to apply for a grant that we may not have a reasonable chance of getting because we're not providing good data for the grant application. If that makes sense.
Well, and just so you all know where my head's at, this originated out of the bus ordinance. So it was really a busload of asylum seekers show up on our doorstep.
Mm-hmm.
And, they are legally in this country. We can't make anyone go anywhere or do anything. I mean, they are free, just like every one of us. If they chose to stay in the city of DeKalb, what resources are we going to have to make sure? I mean, we came up with that 24, 48-hour plan, but we knew that it could go well beyond that. And the spirit of this was to provide for that. So I always saw the grant in my head was, if we have that where there's 25, 50 people that show up, your organization has the infrastructure in place and the volunteers in place to make that happen. We know there's a delay in funding, so there needs to be a funding source for the immediate, like, hey, we're in it right now, kind of thing. I saw that as city, I saw that as community. We all figure out, and you have to do some sort of magic math in your head of what that budget might look like, I know.
Haven't taken a math class since junior year of high school.
And then, this funding would be reimbursing us for that effort.
Mm-hmm.
That's the scope. When I think of the scope of what we were talking about, that ultimately this discussion has been about. I think to your point, I don't know the benefit of applying for the grant now, as opposed to, well, if we have a busload of asylum seekers and we are providing those services, that's an easy thing to apply for then, because the need is right there.
Right.
We've got it documented, all the expenses documented, and we submit city manager
So
notes.
what Oak Park did was to cut through a lot of that, and back in the first part of September of '23, said, we'll take X numbers a person. So there's their documentation of need, 150 people, and then there was a process, and working back and forth with the state agency, they were able to get a certain amount of money a month. As I said, it was about $350,000 the first month, and they got another. They also had some ARPA money from leftover from COVID, $400,000 or $500,000, I think, and that all went in. So all in all, about $1 million, more than half of that from the state. That's not where the council is, as I understand it, but you can define where you are as a group. But failing that, then it's sort of names and circumstances coming in our direction, coming to be known as potential recipients of assistance through the SMAS program. And we just haven't discovered who those people are, how many there are, and it's not like we're hiding from that, and we haven't. And it could happen rather quickly. We're not, the country, as the mayor said a while back, has been failing pox on everybody in Washington. It's failing to come up with answers to help people that Lynn described in her poem, which are desperately in need.
So to finish my thought too, we're co-creating this, what this looks like. I think you mentioned an idea of, and where I'm at right now in my head, if we had a fund, carve it out, X amount of dollars towards this initiative when it comes to asylum seekers, I think that's a great step that we could take. And then when the need happens, we've got funds to make sure that the kiddos are housed, and we've got food, and we've got those things, and then we could apply for reimbursement of those. I have a slew of questions when it comes to the social service agencies that are going to facilitate this. Obviously, we can't give, Frankie, we can't give you money or your organization money. It has to be a 501c3 established. There's got to be governance in place, all that other stuff. I want to understand more about healthcare and the hospital, where they stand on all this. But I kind of like that idea. Did you have your hand up?
I did.
Alderwoman Larson.
I was kind of half up. I guess for anything that comes to vote in front of me, it's like, yes, this is great. I can't believe the amount of work you guys have gotten done, and that's fabulous. It shows you how great DeKalb is and the people who live here. But sitting here and having to vote on it, to me, we have to have a dollar amount, a top dollar amount, like whatever we're going to be maybe left holding the bag if the state doesn't come through. The money runs out. They don't reinvest money into this SMAS program. Who is the final person in charge? That president who said, the buck stops here with me. Who is that? Of all these social services, they can all be right there helping equally stand, but at the end of the day, there has to be the last one that's going to make things happen. So those are a couple of things that I would need to know before I'd feel comfortable voting on anything.
Alderman Verbeek.
Well, we already have staff time. We're going to have more staff time. I view that all as being reimbursable. So that's why I would say we need to move ahead on this, because we already have reimbursements due to our effort.
It's tied to asylum seekers, and
But
we
we have
don't
no
have that,
asylum
right? I mean,
We
it's,
wouldn't seek reimbursement for city staff, but I can say, right now, and it's my job to know how to answer the question, well, who's going to take care of this at the city end? When it was the buses, we had a system for emergency response, and took a couple days to put it together, worked it with the other departments.
the hotels.
And we're able to do that. This is much bigger.
Yeah.
And more, there's more continuation that's very important and critical. Because if we're going to have our hands out and help people to, put our hands out as a helping hand, I should say, and help people, we can't then run away from that and say, well, we did it for 30 days. Boy, it was good while it lasted. Sorry. That's inhumane in my opinion. Certainly ingenuous. In any case, it would be the city manager, the community services coordinator, and probably Mr. Riddell in some part of his day would be involved, kind of a quasi-assistant to the city manager for these things, and we do our best, and we can make it happen. We truly would make it happen, and we've talked about this. For $50,000, we can do that. For $50,000 a month for 6 months, or $100,000 a month for 6 months, that's a different project. And that's why we need to know a little bit more about what kind of in-kind services or people services can be provided without reimbursement from our social service agencies. That's critical. Because if we have to pay, I can do it, but we need, it's 20 hours a week at $25 an hour, which is all in, and we'll give you the bill. That's not what's going to make this work. So it's easy enough to pull together those agencies and representatives, and we can do that in the next week or two and figure that out. But I think rather than waiting to find a population to claim, I think we may want to explore this, as the mayor was saying.
Yeah, and it could be fund is there available.
Yeah.
So when the need hits.
May I
yes.
just say one thing?
Yeah.
So as your budget officer, I got to say, there isn't an endless, there's not a bottomless pit here.
Right.
So I gave you a 5-year projection when I gave you this year's budget, and it showed that every year our income was offsetting our expenses for the next 5 years, although we went from a year-end projected surplus in '24 of about $2.5 million to basically zero. 10,000 is too close to call in 5 years. And why is that? Because there's a huge structural problem that we have. It has to do with 2 state pensions. And we've talked about that ad nauseum here. But so people in the audience know this year is costing us, apart from actuarial numbers that go up as you have more bodies and people age and so forth, because of the ramp system that we have here and the terrible amortization system that the state imposed back in the late 60s, we are going to run out of money in 5 years after 2027. Just so you know that. That's why Nicholas has been proposing a pretty fat reserve. So we have money to do these things, but we're not going to continue to have that money too far into the future unless at the state level something's done about that. I'm not going to belabor that point, but it's not just a nice cushion that we have and we can give away anytime we want. It's something that we have to be mindful about. 50,000 will not change that process remarkably. But if we're looking at a commitment that's ongoing, we have to take that into consideration. And if it's okay, we could go on with this, but if it's okay, I could bring back something at the next meeting or one of the next meetings, and that's thoughtful and is vetted with local agencies, and talk to DeKalb Micronate about it, and give you something you can put your teeth into, some options for action.
I think what I'm seeing and hearing heads nodding, not hearing heads nodding, but seeing them, I think that idea of a fund that's available to be able to address the immediate need should we have asylum seekers come into the city of DeKalb, I think is a great step, so we can take care of that. Then once we have the asylum seekers, from what I'm hearing, we can apply for the grant, we get reimbursement, and we could look at that as the initial seed funding for making this happen. I assume, I don't know how your fundraising efforts have been going, but we won't be, and the state probably won't be the sole funding mechanism to make this happen. So I assume there's going to be community support there that'll help out with that. But I think that really gets us in a good spot. And that would be the recommendation you're ultimately looking for?
Yes, and I can bring some options back to you. This issue's hot. Let's keep moving.
Yep.
Bring it back to you at the next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, and real quick on both of you, I really want to know specifically, I want to hear Northwestern Medicine also, making sure that they're leaning in and aware and
I have a
what's
meeting
there.
with someone from there on Friday.
I have no doubt you do. I appreciate that. Thanks, Frankie. All right, so we don't need roll call on considerations. That's great. Great discussion. All right, moving on to, and by the way, all of you, you don't have to stay. We got some boring stuff coming up. One thing's kind of exciting, but it might be boring to all of you. So feel free. Absolutely appreciate your participation. I'm going to say it again. Make sure you're reaching out to your U.S. Congress person as well as Senator to advocate for this particular issue. And we'll see you next council meeting. Thanks, Frankie. All right, moving on to agenda item J, resolutions. Number 1, resolution 2024-017, authorizing an independent consultant agreement with PGAV Planners LLC regarding the feasibility of establishing a tax increment finance redevelopment project area along the South 4th Street corridor from Taylor Street to I-88. Can I have a motion to bring it to the floor?
So moved.
Moved by Alderman Perkins, seconded by Alderman Smith. Alderman McAdams. City Manager.
So we'll shift gears. We're looking at a corridor in our community that about 10 years ago, an earlier council thought might be induce toward more private investment or redevelopment. It's too much noise out there, okay. By incorporating a portion of that corridor into a TIF district. And there was a study that was done and a recommendation to proceed. The council decided not at that time to do it. The number of parcels in the land area that were part of that would have generated an increment, certainly. But the number of projects and the scope of the projects would have been limited. And the council thought at that point, well, it's a lot of time. We're also, in a sense, sitting on increment that otherwise would be spread through the regular taxing process to the other taxing bodies. Although we don't have a record of a JRB recommendation one way or another at the time, but it's pretty clear that it was decided that was just not a prudent idea. So 10 years have passed. We've lost further commercial investment in the same corridor. We, in the last couple of years, have had the good fortune to have billions of dollars of investment just half a mile down the road and under the tollway, and there's not a magical intergalactic wall there. So what's keeping people from creating some demand for some additional commercial? Frankly, I don't have an answer to that. But the argument that there may be some need to induce further private investment is maybe a little more timely to have now than it was 10 years ago. To even consider a TIF district, as I put in my background, it requires some very detailed research. Every parcel that is to be in that district has to be assessed, and by looking at usually about a 5-year trail of EAV for that particular parcel. Has it been going up, down, or is it stable? Which is not good if you're looking for some increase in investment and so forth in value. And it's something that's beyond the ability of, in terms of time, for our city staff to do. And so I've talked to PGAV planners. They were involved the last time. They have some information that actually would help with the pulling together of a revised study. Also, we're involved with us in TIF 1 and TIF 2. They know DeKalb. They have a pretty good idea of our background and what we're doing here. They've been following us in recent years as well. A representative from the firm was to be here tonight at 4:30. I got a call that he's stranded in a rental car, whatever, in Decatur, and wasn't able to make it. And I said I thought we could proceed at least to this conversation. So I posed this possibility to the Joint Review Board 2 weeks ago, not because I was looking for a recommendation. Didn't have enough information at that point. We don't know what the assessment is going to be like. As I put in my background, it could take us another 4 or 5 months, conservatively speaking, to find out the answers that people are asking themselves now who have taken the time to read our background or talk about this on social media or whatever. And that is this the right thing? Aren't we done with TIF? And all those other questions. I think the answers will be part of the result that we'll present to you when the study is ready to be reviewed by you. But the study would also be reviewed this time around by the Joint Review Board, which is representatives of all the local taxing bodies, and presumably the local taxing bodies would take it up as a consideration too. And there would be numbers pointing to what the possible benefit would be over time, and the impact on the local taxing bodies, as well as us. We would also be impacted by this. So, and also the scope in terms of geography might change, might be smaller. Usually you start a little bit wider and you work your way in. The last time we started very small, had only one lot depth on either side of South 4th Street, and not all the lots on South 4th Street, including not all of the commercial lots. So It seems to me we could do better than that. Proof is going to be in the result that I present to you in another 3 or 4 months if you decide to go forward with this. And I hope you will, because I think, although from time to time we get inquiries about this or that particular parcel, they tend to fade away. And almost invariably we're asked, is there a TIF down here, or what, you know? And so, well, we really don't have a development fund right now that would incentivize. You got to strip a place down. You've got to do all that interior work and plumbing and HVAC and so forth. It's beyond their ability to do this, and they don't want to go into debt too deep to make something happen that they can't amortize over time. So we recommend that we give this a try. If you decide at the end, well, this isn't what we want to do, we reimburse the TIF fund from a non-TIF fund, and maybe it's another 5 to 10 years before we see the value of it. But the only way to see it is to assess it, and the only way to assess it is at this point to bring in some pros who can do it and knock it out and do it in a reasonable period of time. That's what is before you tonight.
Council. Alderman McAdams.
So I can answer one of your questions. Right after I got elected, I was called to a private meeting with a business interest in town who confessed to me that he had been suppressing development on the 4th Street corridor because it helped his business interest. And he had developed an informal political action committee to criticize TIF funding because that was the solution that would mess up his business plan. He wanted me to participate in that ruse, and I refused. And then there's been a lot of talk about that since. But the reality is that we probably need a TIF district on 4th Street corridor. When I was running for office, I ordered this book from the Illinois Municipal League. The Illinois Municipal League has a book on how to finance municipal improvements. And since none of you have purchased this, and I guarantee none of you have read this, it is very dry and not particularly interesting. I'm going to give you a highlight. You can finance local improvements with special assessments, a special service area taxation. We can use revenue bonds to purchase or construct municipal facilities. We can get general obligation bonds, or we can use installment purchase and lease agreements if we don't go with a TIF, tax increment financing. I strongly recommend that we look into it and that we spend the money to look into TIF financing. Hopefully the numbers are there. I would like to see 4th Street redeveloped now that we have downtown fairly redeveloped, and I'm looking forward to voting yes later on.
Alderman Perkins.
Well, thanks, Bill, for pulling all this together. For me, in the 4th Ward, just seeing it, you know, I see a need to do something. And the question is, well, what do we want to do? How do we want to do it? Every day when I'm driving down 4th Street, I'm concerned that the kids playing on the side of literally on the side of the highway are going to goof around, and one of them is going to get pushed into the street, or I'm going to clip them with the mirror on my truck, because literally the sidewalks are right on the street. And if you look at to continue further with the need, if you're driving south out of town on 4th Street, at the time when this was originally pushed before council, I think there was a White Hen there that was in business, no longer in business. There was a pharmacy right next to it in business, no longer in business. We got the KFC there that we tried to put 2 or 3 different things in. Nothing can get any legs. Twins, continuing south on the way out of town, was there since, what, the 50s? No longer in business. My point is, there's a real need in that key area of our community. That's the developing piece of our community. So the question then becomes, well, how are we going to fund the need? And I think getting some pros involved to have a look and hold our hand with some guidance, I think is a great first step. So I'm behind it 100%.
Alderwoman Zazada.
Sure. So yes, thank you for bringing this to us. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that it has been mentioned in the past, like, hey, can we do this in the first ward? Can we do this around Hillcrest and such? But I understand the boundaries on tax increment financing. I understand where they belong, where they don't belong, and what the fits are. And I would agree that South 4th Street seems like an excellent fit. And furthermore, I would say that it is a perfect fit in the context of the intended use of tax increment financing, because tax increment financing is intended to capture expected growth due to the type of growth like south of 88. So this is really a textbook case, perfect scenario and space to do it in. And so I would, yes, also support it. You know, the study has to be done, and I think the study even looks like it's a good price compared to some of the prices we've paid in the past. So good all around. I know the first ward is going to be a little sad. It's not happening in our ward. However, I don't see a perfect fit spot in the first ward for this, quite like the 4th Street corridor.
Anyone else? I'm excited to see what the study comes back. I'll echo what Alderman Perkins said. You know, grew up here, walked down that street many a time from the high school going to White Hen for lunch. You know, it used to be way more vibrant than it is. And if we look at the downtown renovation that we have, replay or rewind 5 years ago and where downtown was and where it is today, it is literally a night and day transformation. And if not but for TIF, that wouldn't have happened, period, end of story. So I think with everything going on the south side of town, there is a real potential that we implement this TIF, we make some investment to spur some economic development activity, and I think that 4th Street corridor could absolutely be incredibly vibrant. But we need to have some funds in place to help, as City Manager Nicholas talked about, bring things up to code, all those things, ADA compliance, that if you were doing it on your own, it would just be cost prohibitive to do some of these buildings. So absolutely for it as well. So you need a resolution approval to go forward. So any other comments or questions, council? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Verbic,
Yes.
Zasada,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
McAdams.
Yes.
Mayor Barnes.
Yes.
7-0.
Resolution 2024-017 passes. Moving on to number 2, Resolution 2024-018, authorizing the purchase of one used 2017 Mack single axle plow truck with wing to be utilized by the Public Works Street Division in an amount not to exceed $154,000, Fund 420. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Alderwoman Zazada, seconded by Alderwoman Larson. City Manager.
Thank you. This is a good deal.
It is.
It's a collaborative deal.
Should I call roll, or?
Yes. Recommend.
Did you say Ken?
I was being a little bit sarcastic, but your background I
I'm
think,
not.
covered it pretty well.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Okay, I'll roll call, please. Well, sorry. Any other comments or questions from council?
We really want to call roll.
Hearing none, roll call, please.
Zasada,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Smith,
He just stepped away.
Perkins,
Yes.
McAdams.
Yes.
Verbic,
Yes.
Mayor Barnes.
Yes.
6-0.
Resolution 2024-018 passes. Number 3, Resolution 2024-019, authorizing the purchase and equipping of one 2023 Dodge Ram 1500 pickup truck for the police department based on the Illinois Central Management Services contract pricing in an amount not to exceed $45,991. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Alderman McAdams, seconded by Alderwoman Larson. City Manager.
This is also a good deal. The police department had looked around for a replacement and found a couple of cars on a lot that is owned by a person who, a dealership that participates in our state purchasing, and the price was more than right. And so we recommend replacing an existing pickup, which is 16 years old, has a two-wheel drive transmission and a stick shift. I guess stick shift is good if you know how to work it, but the problem is it's in repair more than it's out of repair, out of the repair shop, and we do need something we're every week we're pulling that sled for the for traffic surveil, or traffic calming. And whenever we pull lights around, whenever there's a fire or there's some type of an incident, that's what we use. We don't do that with squad cars. Recommend your support of this.
Council, questions, comments?
I'm
Yes,
just,
Alderman Larson.
I'm just always amazed whether it's Andy or Chief Byrd or Chief Thomas. Where do you keep getting these old trucks?
I know,
And
right?
that they're still running. I'm like, yeah, it's amazing how many miles, how many years you get on your equipment.
Because it feels like we've replaced the entire fleet, although we know that's
Oh,
not
no.
the case.
No. Can I address that?
Yes.
I just happened to talk to Streets today, and Andy pulled up how many. I didn't get that. Oh, sorry. I'll try again. That, I just wanted to know, same thing, how many are we looking at? Over 60% are not within that 10 to 13 years. They are older than that. And as the prices increase, I just feel like we're chasing this ball we're never going to get to, but, you know.
We've made some progress.
Yeah.
The money that is voted now on an annual basis helps us. We don't lose ground, we're not gaining ground, except in a couple, Jim T certainly helps with our fire equipment, thank goodness, and that does give us a bounce for some other departments.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Larson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
McAdams.
Yes.
Verbic,
Yes.
Zasada,
Yes.
Mayor Barnes.
Yes.
7-0.
Resolution 2024-019 passes. Moving on to number 4, Resolution 2024-020, authorizing the waiver of competitive bidding and approving the purchase of water meters and radio transmitters from Badger Meter Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $80,000. Yes, can I have a motion to bring it to the floor?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Alderman Verbic, seconded by Alderwoman Zazada. City Manager.
Certain amount of and we've been through this, I think everybody here has done this, we do this once a year. And as I mentioned in the background, we don't look to spend $80,000 right away. We want at least to have the authorization to spend up to that amount. Maybe we'll only spend 40. If we go in the usual pace of the retirement, if you will, of meters and radio transmitters, we'll spend at least half or a little bit more than that. But this is why, this is so we don't have to come back to you after we spend 5,000 or over my limit, which would be 20,000. We have to come back and ask for another 20, and so forth. Brian Faber, who's away today, if he had been here, he would simply say this is a well-managed program, and Badger Meter is currently has the manufacturer's seal on most of our meters. It doesn't make sense to try to go to some other outfit that can't repair the meters that are always just a little bit different, just some different guts when you do that. And they've been very reliable. We've just about gone through another generation of meters that was by another vendor, and there's still some that are in some people's basements, but on the whole, they're Badger, which is more reliable. And so we recommend this allocation. It's out of our water fund. It's budgeted. It was budgeted each of the last 5 years that I've been involved in this. So.
Questions or
Please don't
comments,
spend it all.
council? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Smith,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
McAdams.
Yes.
Verbic,
Yes.
Zasada,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Mayor Barnes.
Yes.
7-0.
Resolution 2024-020 passes. Number 5, Resolution 2024-021, authorizing the waiver of competitive bidding and awarding the purchase of one Stryker power load system and cot from Stryker for the fire department in an amount not to exceed $55,531.14 using ground emergency medical transportation GEM-T funding, Fund 130. Can I have a motion to bring it to the floor?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Alderman Perkins, seconded by Alderman McAdams. City Manager.
We're budgeted to take on 2 new replacement ambulances. We're asking in this case and in the next case for 1 unit to go on to one of the new ambulances. We'll be able to transfer one of the units from an existing ambulance to one of those new ones. So in this case, what we're talking about is the Stryker, which is the manufacturer and the vendor, power load system and cot. This is a lifesaver, it's a back saver, and very important. And they keep getting better with how they do this. So the product that they produce, and we strongly recommend that we complete our fleet with this purchase.
Questions or comments, council? Hearing none again, roll call, please.
Perkins,
Yes.
McAdams.
Yes.
Verbic,
Yes.
Sisata,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Mayor Barnes.
Yes.
7-0.
Resolution 2024-021 passes. Number 6, Resolution 2024-022, authorizing the waiver of competitive bidding and awarding the purchase of one Zoll cardiac monitor with accessories for the fire department from Penn Care Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $20,750 using Ground Emergency Medical Transportation GEMT funding, Fund 130. Can I have a motion to bring it to the floor?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Alderman Smith, seconded by Alderman McAdams. City Manager.
This is a cardiac monitor for obvious reasons. These are important, they're lifesavers on our ambulances. For one of the new ambulances replacements we're going to get, we want to outfit that in every appropriate way, and that includes this. So strongly recommend you support it.
Council, questions, comments? Yes, Alderman McAdams.
As someone who had his life saved by the fire department, I strongly support
Definitely.
doing that. Thank you.
Hearing no others, roll call, please.
McAdams,
Yes.
Verbic,
Yes.
Sisata,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Mayor Barnes.
Yes.
7-0.
Resolution 2024-022 passes. Then moving on to agenda item K, ordinances second reading, we have none. Agenda item L, ordinances first reading. Number 1, ordinance 2024-007, authorizing a third amendment to an annexation agreement for Lot 8 in the Glidden Crossing subdivision located at 1130 South Malta Road in order to accommodate an 8,000 square foot fire station, City of DeKalb. Can I have a motion to bring it to the floor?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Alderwoman Zada, seconded by Alderwoman Larson. City Manager.
So this item was the subject of the hearing a long time ago at the top of the meeting, and what it boils down is this. It boils down to is this: that for this ordinance and the next ordinance, as you well know, because you've been very supportive and very grateful for your support for the Forest Fire Station. The station is going to be erected on a site. It's about an acre in area, and it's off of West Taylor Street or South Malta Road, depending on what you call that stretch. It's on a lot that was dedicated for this specific purpose back in 2006, before there were any homes there. And at the time, I guess it was imagined that somehow you'd come in off this private lane that runs from Taylor Street basically south along the frontage of the Schnucks commercial strip and out. The problem with that is that our vehicles going in and out, whether it's coming back from or going to a call, would be competing with the commercial traffic going in and out. And I suspect that a lot of people would be startled by that. So we've from the beginning only considered aligning the bays going north and south rather than east and west. So our emergency traffic is going to go out onto Taylor Street, where we'll come up smartly to the traffic signal, and that will change to allow the emergency vehicles to go through. And also in returning, we won't be competing with a long or a large vehicle making a turn onto that private drive as a necessity rather than as maybe an option, depending on what's going on Taylor Street. So what we're looking for is a required amendment to our plan development ordinance that was passed back in 2006, which allows that full access to South Malta Road. The next item, just to prefigure this, will allow us to bring in a final plan which depicts that and other things that pertain to a station which was only a concept 17 years ago, which is now getting 75% close to being rendered for your review.
Council, comments or questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Verbic,
Yes.
Zasada,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
McAdams.
Yes.
Mayor Barnes.
Yes.
7-0.
Ordinance 2024-007 passes on first reading. I take a motion to waive second reading.
Motion to waive second reading and approve.
Second.
Moved by Alderman Verbic, seconded by Alderman Smith. Any comments or questions on that? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Zasada,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
McAdams.
Yes.
Verbic,
Yes.
Mayor Barnes.
Yes.
7-0.
Second reading has been waived for ordinance 2024-007. Moving on to agenda item number 2, ordinance 2024-008, approving an amendment to ordinance 2006-059, and approval of a final plan to allow an additional full access on the South Malta Road to accommodate an 8,000 square foot fire station, City of DeKalb, and it's Taylor Street. Can I have a motion to bring it to the floor?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Alderwoman Larson, seconded by Alderman Perkins. I thought that was funny, but obviously not. City Manager.
In the previous ordinance and in this one, we're just asking of ourselves what we would ask of anybody else to do. Now we've got a lot that is to be developed. There is going to be a final plan for it. And so we're saying that we need to amend that to show that this will be a site for our 4th fire station. Nothing more
Any
complicated.
comments or
than that.
questions? Awesome. Roll call, please.
Larson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
McAdams.
Yes.
Verbic,
Yes.
Zasada,
Yes.
Mayor Barnes.
Yes.
7-0.
Ordinance 2024-008 passes on first reading. I would take a motion to waive second reading.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Alderman Perkins, seconded by Alderman McAdams. Any comments or questions on that? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Smith,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
McAdams.
Yes.
Verbic,
Yes.
Zasada,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Mayor Barnes.
Yes.
7-0.
Ordinance 2024-008 passes on second reading. Number 3, ordinance 2024-009, amending Chapter 23, Unified Development Ordinance, Article 7.06, fences. Can I have a motion to bring it to the floor?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Alderman Verbic, seconded by Alderwoman Zazada. City Manager.
I want to thank Dan Olson for being the shepherd for this. The first piece of it started with some complaints from 2 lots in Heatherstone across the street from each other. It's not often that you have a private lot that with frontage on 3 public streets. This was one. People in both houses, for their own reasons, had dogs, and they would put their dog in the backyard, and it had 2 walls that were 6 feet to keep the dog in, and then they, all of a sudden, you had a 3-foot wall, and guess what the dog did? The dog eventually found that there was a dog park just down the road, a dresser, and so in and out of public road a lot. But following the ordinance, the fences were erected, and I got involved when the second house was told you have to tear down your 3-foot high solid or your 6-foot, and you have to either take out one of every other board, so now it's no longer a solid fence, and you theoretically look through it. Of course, dogs love that, so they didn't have to leap anymore. They could just go through the boards. So I thought, this is crazy. Why would people buy houses with big backyards? Except maybe they had some young children. In both cases, they had animals. But for their safety and for their own enjoyment and the privacy that it would bring, they wanted to enjoy their backyard, spent a lot of money on these houses, and now all of a sudden they couldn't do it. So Dan and I worked together on this, got it through the Plan Commission, and we take it to you, which allows, in this very rare case really, that people can have the 6-foot high fences in their side yards, which are 3 rather than 2. So I hope you agree. If we don't do this, we've got some really bad news to bring to 2 property owners who will wonder.
Not it.
Yes.
Council, questions or comments? Alderman McAdams.
light question, do we know the name of the dog? Okay, I was gonna say we could name it Spots Law or whatever it is.
I think they're already named.
Alderwoman
Now,
Zada.
I should say one other thing. So, okay, that's the fence part for the residential units. Also, month or maybe 2 months ago, we tidied up the UDO with respect to the GS Government Sanitary District zoning classification. We didn't include fences. Since we had the fence ordinance before you tonight, we thought, let's just clean this up. As far as we know, this is the last cleanup thing we have to do. So there is also provision there that puts the already committed restrictions on fencing for these quasi-industrial uses into this section of the code. Doesn't break new ground. It just basically says, as they were able to have it before, they can have it now, but they're under a different title.
Speaking of cleanup, that tire in that picture, I mean, I'm assuming
Yeah, right.
someone was on top of that.
So that was a setback for fences on alleys?
What's that? Oh, yeah, and then, I should have said, it's in the background that there is language also here for a setback of 3 feet for all fences along alleys. And that allows for, as you can see here, it's not quite 3, but what happens is for people, there are a lot of smaller homes in older parts of town with backyards that back up to alleys. Fences have been put up almost right on the alley line, sometimes on city property, and there's no room. Yeah, there's your tire. And also probably keeping the gate
Gate
closed.
shut, yeah.
And there's no room to put the garbage containers except in the alley, which is not good if you have an emergency vehicle. So a little bit of a setback is reasonable.
What, in that circumstance, since this isn't 3 feet, I mean,
That one is probably two, just a little tight. You need about 30 inches for those carts.
so existing structures are.
Yeah, they're
based
okay,
on-
but, going
Alderwoman
forward.
Zada?
Sorry. I just want to say from a real estate perspective too, with the fences, it's a great piece of progress. I actually had someone who sold a house who couldn't put the fence up that they wanted. It prevented a use. They wanted to put a pool in and they couldn't put a pool in without a full 6-foot fence, but they also weren't allowed to put in a 6-foot fence.
Yeah.
So I wish we could have done this sooner because I know there are people who are impacted by it for years now. And so I really appreciate you getting it done, and this is great. Thank you to Dan Olson and you as well.
Other comments, questions, Council? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Perkins,
Yes.
McAdams,
Yes.
Verbeck,
Yes.
Sisada,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Mayor Barnes.
Yes.
7-9.
Ordinance 2024-009 passes on first reading. Take a motion to waive second.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Alderwoman Larson, seconded by Alderwoman Zazada. Questions or comments, council? Hearing none, roll call, please.
McAdams.
Yes.
Verbeck,
Yes.
Sisada,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Mayor Barnes.
Yes.
7-9.
Second reading has been waived for ordinance 2024-009. Number 4, ordinance 2024-010, amending chapter 51, traffic, section 5120, for parades, processions, runs, rides, walks, and marches. I would take a motion to bring it to the floor.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Alderman Perkins, seconded by Alderman McAdams. City Manager.
We're in Hebron for a number of years. We've been trying to be flexible with small groups that are looking to do something in our downtown area in particular. Never done anything before, don't have a budget, don't have money to go to an insurer and get a certificate of insurance. Now, obviously, if there's alcohol involved, they're using the dram shop insurance of the bar that is working with them on a one-day license, the G license. But when it comes to liability, the city will be the deep pockets that is sought first, and we are liable in the general sense, but if we are not inviting people into precarious circumstances willingly, knowingly, if people are doing something that's illegal or the like, it's going to be quiet, because, I mean, if we really wanted to cover everything, we would make people go out and get that $100 or $200 insurance for it. But I'll tell you, we made a number of exceptions in the last 5 years so that people can get started on something. Last year, the very successful Sweet Stroll started and didn't have, so I would like to have the latitude, unless there's some extraordinary, like there's a person swallowing fire or something like that, that we're going to be thoughtful and reasonable about this. And eventually what happens is, for their own purposes, people will go ahead and get the insurance. That's one piece of this. The other piece is that Ruth Scott very patiently and tirelessly processes all this stuff. And sometimes when we have to get state approval for the use of Illinois 38, it requires that we be very patient and wait until we hear from IDOT that we can go ahead. And so we propose that we push the 30-day limit. Usually people come in a week before and say, hey, we'd love to do a parade, it'd be a lot of fun, and we'd do this. Well, it's going to take 45 days if it takes a minute for IDOT usually to respond to us. So we're very happy that they let us use these thoroughfares 4 or 5 times a year. But it does take some time, and even if we do all that we can't turn it around until we get the state approval. So right now the code is hard and fast. It said 30 days and then it's permitted, and I think that's not right. So another 15 days usually will solve the problem.
Comments or questions, council? Hearing none for that great idea. Roll call, please.
Verbeck,
Yes.
Zasada,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
McAdams,
Yes.
Mayor Barnes.
Yes.
7-9.
Ordinance 2024-010 passes on first reading. I'd take a motion to waive second reading.
So move.
Second?
Moved by Alderman Perkins, seconded by Alderman Smith. Questions or comments? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Zasada,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
McAdams,
Yes.
Verbeck,
Yes.
Mayor Barnes.
Yes.
7-9.
Second reading has been waived for ordinance 2024-010. Moving on to agenda item M, reports and communication. Number 1, council member reports. Alderwoman Zazada, you want to kick us off?
No report.
Alderman Smith.
No report.
Alderman McAdams.
No report.
Alderman Burbick.
No report?
Alderman Perkins.
No report.
We want to get out of here. Alderwoman Larson. Here we go.
No, no report. I was just like, no report. We've done nothing all week. No report.
So since that gives me extra time, which is awesome, I'll be really quick. So I attended the chamber annual dinner, the DeKalb Chamber annual dinner, and it was phenomenal. Black Ink, which is run by Tiffany Tucker, won Nonprofit of the Year. Listening to her speech, you want to talk about the right person on the bus and in the right seat. She was absolutely amazing, and just so well deserved. El Jimador won Business of the Year, which was really cool. Again, well-deserving family that runs that organization, and it's hard to believe they've only been around for 3 years. It seems like they've been a staple in DeKalb forever. Courtney Strohacker, many of you may know, she runs the DeKalb County Convention and Visitors Bureau. She was inducted in the Hall of Fame, and I think that was phenomenal for someone that has obviously been championing our community and our county for a long time. And then Dr. Ebbison, the first super senior, was also inducted as a pioneer into the Hall of Fame, which was great. All around, great event, sold out crowd, in fact, overflow crowd at that, which was really cool. Also was on WLBK with T.D. Ryan, as usual, every month on his radio show. We also had the First National Bank Challenge, and that's always just a fun event to go to see our own Barbs take on the Spartans. And I think they've raised 1.4 or knocking on, or 1.7, but when you think they're into the 7 figures, the amount of money that they've raised over the years for both athletic teams, or both athletic boosters, for both schools, it's staggering to see, again, our community coming out and supporting the way they do. Also went to a ribbon cutting at the DeKalb Fresh Market. Martine was phenomenal, made a bunch of food for everybody. You want to talk about someone that's incredibly proud, but if you haven't been there yet, you have to go there. That place, it's not a fresh market, it is a supermarket. It was huge. Ran into Alderman Perkins shopping there, which was really cool. I know, that was awesome.
Taco night?
Yep, you were there, supporting a local business. But Martine is incredibly proud of his fresh market, and I would encourage everyone to give it a look, give it a shop, and he's got a nice little restaurant off to the side that has some incredible food as well. Also, I just gotta say, Chief, I think yesterday I saw 3 people pulled over. Loved it. It was great. So it just shows more and more we're starting to perform that function in our police department. So just let your team know. It was recognized, it was saw, and it's great that we're making sure we're patrolling our streets throughout the community. With that, how about you, City Manager? You got anything?
I want to thank Alderman McAdams for your
Yes.
kind defense. We've had to endure slams and scurrilous comments that we heard tonight before, mostly on the part of the lady's brother. This has been going on for 6-7 years. Started with the county, wore out folks up there, then moved to the Kishwaukee Hospital, and then County Sheriff's Department, our police department, and then when I was still the new guy on the block 5 years ago, I became one of the targets. But it's not just words, and I wouldn't even bother to say this, but you should know, and the press should know, that this same person, and maybe now he's got a surrogate, I hope not, has verbally bullied, harassed every woman in City Hall who was a professional working there, been trespassed from City Hall for that very purpose, and other places within the city, other buildings within the city government. That kind of bullying, whatever the cause, that it's very hard to fathom, is just not acceptable. And hate like that is not welcome in DeKalb.
Well said, and I agree. Nice call out. I don't know if it's a resolution or what has to happen, but I made a recommendation to Recording Secretary Scott. When I was at the school district, they still require name and address. We used to do name and address. And I think what's important about that is there's people that come up and speak on behalf of our community who don't live in our community. And I think it'd be good to identify you are a citizen of the city of DeKalb when you come. I don't know what that takes, if we have to discuss that as a resolution, City Attorney.
I agree wholeheartedly with you. The problem is the way that the Illinois Attorney General has construed the Open Meetings Act is to say that anonymity in terms of name and address can be maintained, so we can't compel it.
Well, we have required on our sheet now, so we can add required for address.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of
sense
for a lot of reasons, particularly zoning matters where you have to provide notice to interested parties and people come up and you're like, I don't know who that person is, and they find out that you find out that they're right next to them, but I will just say that it's that you can't compel it.
So anyone have a problem adding it to it? Obviously, we can't compel.
But you can definitely ask.
Yeah.
Right?
So the second thing, since obviously we can talk about this, the second thing is I'd also like, and the school district did this as well, that direct attacks towards individuals and ultimately an overall spirit of decorum needs to be in public comment. Again, we can't require it, but it would be nice to actually be able to call that out before someone speaks. Does anyone really have a problem with that, or can we add it? No? Okay. Beautiful. All right. Recording Secretary, I'd love to work with you on what that looks like.
May I just say, I'm not super comfortable with the address thing. It just feels like a lot to, I think it's good to know, and I think we had some people speak this evening who clarified, like, I'm from Sycamore, right? And so it's good to know if they're from your community or not. It does feel a little creepy to be giving out your address on...
Like all of us did.
What do you mean?
All of us have our addresses out there.
In the public.
They
Yeah.
took them back off, though.
No.
Didn't they take them back off?
No,
'Cause
the
back-
city, the ward map, it has our addresses, it has all that.
Oh, on
you
the
know.
ward map.
And that's where,
Yeah.
yeah. I was saying-
Nonetheless, I do think it's more information than needs to be put out there. I think there are lots of people in situations like domestic violence and situations where
Yeah.
we shouldn't compel people. And I understand, like, you're asking them for it. It's okay to ask, but I think it's also okay to say no. So.
Well, we could
yeah.
definitely do that. Like you said, we cannot enforce it at all. I would just like to put on there, this is what we're looking for, and if they deny it, then they deny it, and we can't stop that. Alderman McAdams?
I would just like to say, for business owners that don't live in town, but own businesses in town, they show up and act like they're from town. I'm here, I own a business in town, but if you don't vote here, you're not from here. One business interest in particular lives in St. Charles, but acts like he lives here. And I think it's important that people know that he doesn't live here. So maybe if we could have a way where people could identify the city instead of their physical address.
Right.
I'm from DeKalb, I'm from St. Charles, I'm from Sycamore, that might be helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely think you could have a box like that. But you can ask for people's address, you just can't compel.
Yep. All right. I know it's only 8:15, and you all would love to stay and keep talking, and I know our audience would love to listen to our riveting conversation further, but I will, at this point, we have no agenda item for an executive session, so I would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Alderwoman Larson, seconded by Alderman Perkins. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nay, same sign. We are adjourned. Thank you for doing that.